So today, Comrade Mamdani put out a statement that I want to read to you. Today's military strikes on Iran, carried out by the United States and Israel, mark a catastrophic escalation of an illegal war of aggression, bombing cities, killing civilians, opening a new theater of war. Americans do not want this. They do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. They want relief from the affordability crisis. They want peace. I am focused on making sure every New Yorker is safe. I've been in contact with our police commissioner and emergency management officials. We are taking proactive steps, including increasing coordination across agencies and enhancing patrols of sensitive locations out of an abundance of caution. Additionally, I want to speak directly to Iranian New Yorkers. You are part of the fabric of this city. You are our neighbors, small business owners, students, artists, workers, and community leaders. You will be safe here. Look, this is Comrade Mamdani cheering for the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
Because they are both jihadists and they both want to see the great Satan of America. They want to see this country fundamentally changed and to become an Islamic caliphate. That was the Ayatollah's objective. That sadly, I believe, is Comrade Mamdani's objective. And I want to contrast that with the reaction of protesters, Iranians, like his line to Iranians, you will be safe here. I know a great many Iranians. Every Iranian I know hates the regime, is cheering. And I want you to watch in particular this scene that played out on the ground in Austin, Texas, and a CBS News reporter who was told, cover the protests celebrating the Ayatollah being killed, cover that up, and this brave reporter didn't do that. Give a listen, give a watch.
It's incredible there. And again, for people that can't see the video, you have this Austin CBS reporter. He was handed the phone from his cameraman, and he reads it, and he's like, what does that mean? And the cameraman responds, they don't want us to focus on this. And this brave local reporter said, all right, well, I am. And now it's out there on the internet of him having this moment. It's sad that you've got to be this brave in America at a local affiliate to report the news, which was the news that you had people celebrating and waving American flags and Iranian flags and standing up for the people, the innocent people in Iran. And they're like, no, we don't want you to focus on that at CBS.
Yeah, look, this is happening all over the country, all over America. It's happening on the ground, on the streets of Iran. It's happening around the world. You know, Kamala Harris today put out a statement, quote, Donald Trump is dragging the United States into a war the American people do not want. Let me be clear. I am opposed to a regime change war in Iran, and our troops are being put in harm's way for the sake of Trump's war of choice. Now, I will tell you, I responded to her on X, and I said, your administration gave over $100 billion to the Ayatollah, who kept killing Americans. We know you're sad that your friend isn't with us anymore. Look, the Democrat Party was all in support of the Ayatollah. Now, sometimes they pretended they weren't, but when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sent over $100 billion, flowed that money into the Ayatollah, they funded his terror. The Obama-Iran nuclear deal was designed to inevitably lead to a nuclear Iran, to the Ayatollah with nuclear weapons. And so this is, I'll tell you, and folks that deal with conflict in the Middle East and that deal with foreign policy frequently refer to Iran as, quote, the head of the snake. Why do they call it the head of the snake? Because it is what is leading and directing and funding the vast majority of the terrorism you see. Without Iran, Hamas has no resources. Without Iran, Hezbollah and the Houthis have no resources. And so what President Trump is doing here is being a strong commander-in-chief and making Americans safer.
But don't worry, the Iranians will always have a little help from their friends, like the terror supporter Zohran Mamdani. And I say that advisedly, considering he literally cut a rap in favor of people who were convicted for terror support. Here is Zohran Mamdani reacting, the mayor of New York. I'm old enough to remember when there was a smoking hole in the ground in New York and 3,000 dead New Yorkers thanks to terrorism. Zohran Mamdani is old enough to remember when he, was associated with people who support that kind of thing. Here is Zohran Mamdani.
Today's military strikes by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal act of war, of aggression, bombing cities, killing civilians, opening up a new theater of war. Americans do not want this. Americans do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. We want an answer to the affordability crisis. We want peace. Now, I may be a young mayor, but I am old enough to remember the devastating consequences of our country's pursuit of regime change in this same region not that many years ago.
And I'm old enough to remember when, again, there was a gigantic smoking hole in the ground thanks to the predations of Islamic terrorism. And I'm old enough to remember because I'm, not all that old. I don't think you have to be that old to remember Iran spreading terrorism all over the region. And Zohran Mamdani acting as though history began last night or 3 nights ago, that Iran was not doing anything, is asinine. We reviewed the timeline over and over on the show over the course of the last several days. Nearly half a century of Iranian war on America, ranging from the Hezbollah bombing of the Marine barracks in 1983 in Lebanon to the Iranian support for the murder of hundreds of American troops in Iraq. But this is your left. This is the left that the Iranians are counting on. They can always count on the editorial page over at the New York Times, Nicholas Kristof, who has never been right about anything, doing the same sort of shtick.
I feel for the Iranians because they've just suffered these brutal massacres, but it's not at all obvious to me that a war with Iran is going to improve things for those Iranians. I think that if the U.S. had focused more on getting Starlink terminals inside Iran, on using the intelligence community to broadcast the corruption, the hypocrisy of the regime, I think that would have been helpful. Would it have achieved the results? I don't know, but I think it might have been more likely than this campaign of bombing, and certainly would have been much less risky.
I can't take the level of stupidity here. I cannot. It is almost impossible to take this level of stupidity. So you had literally millions of Iranians in the streets just weeks ago, and they're getting shot by the tens of thousands. And his answer is, maybe if they knew more about how corrupt the regime is via Starlink. You schmuck. You ridiculous figure, Nicholas Kristof. Yes, clearly what the Iranians were lacking was information about how corrupt and unworkable their regime is. Clearly, the Iranians, who can't pay for water at this point, clearly they need more what they needed was an informational war, you see. These clowns. And then, of course, there's Gavin Newsom taking every side of every possible issue. Again, more positions than the Kama Sutra, the governor of California. He is spreading the libel that American and Israeli forces were targeting school children, which, again, this is gross stuff coming from Gavin Newsom. Truly gross.
We have to reconcile why our bombs were used or Israeli bombs were used to kill children, young girls at a school, and what the imminent threat was. It hasn't been described.
Okay, the imminent threat has, in fact, been described, and the overall threat has been described for literally decades. And this notion that we have to justify bad things happening in war by accident, that you have just forbade all military conflict forever, because it turns out bad things happen in war. And by the way, we still don't know all the facts about this school, what happened, where it was located. Apparently, it was located next to an old IRGC facility. It could have been mistaken intelligence. The understanding is that it was an American plane, maybe, or it might have been a failed ballistic missile from the Iranians. We actually don't know at this point. But even if it was just an accident from the Allied forces, the slander against American soldiers that we are purposefully targeting school children is disgusting, truly disgusting.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this: you can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real. It is stored safely. It is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.